Hello, my name is Olivia Menendez. I'm from Fayetteville High School in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and here is my health narrative titled The Heart's Hidden Enemy, detailing my cousin's journey with atypical celiac disease manifesting as cardiomyopathy. So, what is celiac disease? Celiac disease is an autoimmune condition where the immune system overreacts to gluten, and it typically affects the intestines, but it can present atypically, like in my cousin's case. When Lucy was 7, she experienced symptoms of myocarditis for 8 months before ultimately getting diagnosed with celiac cardiomyopathy, an extremely rare form of CD. So, in terms of how I conducted my health narrative, I used single patient case report and health histories. Um, and my data came primarily from interviewing my cousin and her mom. So patient and parent interviews about symptoms, about timelines, and then also about impact on her daily life. I also looked into literature review on myocarditis in children, and also her initial diagnosis of juvenile dermatomyositis, also known as JDM, and celiac-related cardiomyopathy. So here's a quick timeline of Lucy's case. So years before her collapse, she was experiencing chronic unexplained symptoms, recurrent rashes, swelling around her eyes, leg pain, poor sleep, and paleness. And her family kind of knew her as um, just kind of off and on being sick, and there was really no reason why. She'd have episodes of illness, followed by sudden improvements when she ate very little. So she'd become really sick and lose her appetite, and then she'd improve. Um, Her health would improve because she wasn't eating and then unintentionally avoiding gluten. Um, so- um, she did receive an allergy workup, but there was no clear cause of identified. There was no diagnosis. And then in October of 2017, when Lucy was 7, she was found unresponsive on her kitchen floor. She was cyanotic, barely responsive, she had an abnormally slow pulse, and she was driven straight to um, the regional hospital in our area. Her initial ER care um, was involved. She received large amounts of fluids. She got an X-ray done, basic labs, but still no diagnosis. And she continued to swell and worsen. So she was urgently transferred to Arkansas Children's Hospital in Little Rock, which was about 2 hours drive from where she lived. But basically, the large amount of fluids that she received were worsening her condition because she continued to swell. So the the regional hospital wasn't intentionally trying to make her worse, but they ended up um, she ended up being in severe heart failure. So she arrived at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and she received an echocardiogram, and it revealed severe heart failure with major pericardial effusion around her heart. And so the working diagnosis was viral myocarditis with a widespread vasculitic rash, which the rash was kind of a separate diagnosis, and they didn't really associate it with the heart failure, but they knew it could lead them to a separate diagnosis. So that was definitely something that was noted. I'll talk more about that later, but so the hospital put Lucy in the intensive care unit and with significant intervention. She was then discharged after 2 weeks because she improved, but there was no clear explanation for what had happened. So, and then February of the following year, Lucy suddenly couldn't stand or walk and returned to Arkansas Children's, where she was put on a rheumatology stay. She was given a provisional diagnosis of JDM, which is a rare autoimmune disease in children that causes inflammation of the muscles and small blood vessels, leading to muscle weakness and a characteristic skin rash, which would be would uphold the diagnosis of the oops, sorry, would uphold the diagnosis of the vasculitic rash um, seen back in October. And the muscle weakness is also characteristic of Lucy's inability to stand or walk when she returned to the hospital. So their treatment plan was to administer weekly methotrexate, which is a chemotherapy, and IVIG every fourth weekend, which both are just medication to help suppress the immune system and prevent the body from attacking its own muscles and blood vessels. She then went to Dallas for further testing in Dallas, Texas. She had a muscle biopsy, and that supported the JDM diagnosis at the time. Then in June of that same year, Lucy was evaluated in Baltimore at the NIH, the National Institute of Health, as part of a research study for JDM. And there she received a celiac test, and it came back positive. So both her parents were physicians, and they knew that the JDM diagnosis could be comorbid with other autoimmune diseases. So they knew they were still looking for answers, and that's kind of why they participated in the research study. But their decision to they stopped the methotrexate and IVIG and started her on a strict gluten-free diet. So after that diagnosis, Lucy became significantly healthier once gluten was removed. She's made an almost full recovery. So her updated diagnosis is a rare atypical form of celiac disease that mainly affects her muscles instead of her digestive system. So her symptoms when she eats gluten include eye muscle pain, um, limb weakness, and chest pain. And the main concern here is because the heart is a muscle, there is a risk of future cardiac complications. Um, and then in terms of her ongoing care, she still sees rheumatology every 6 months because JDM may also be involved or may have complicated her early diagnosis, which I noted CD is often comorbid with other autoimmune diseases, so um, they kind of still have to watch out for that. So, in terms of what we can pull from this case, Lucy's case shows how easily rare conditions like celiac cardiomyopathy can hide behind more common explanations. CD patients face a higher risk of heart disease when diagnosis is delayed into adulthood. So, recognizing early forms, rare forms early, can prevent long-term cardiac problems. Another important note is that early screening is so important, especially in this case. If Lucy had been screened for celiac when she was born, then she would have never experienced such troublesome and scary heart problems, and her initial collapse would have never happened. So I think it's really important for children, especially with children who have unexplained immune symptoms. Um, Celiac should be a common test for such symptoms. Lucy's mom, like I mentioned, is a physician, so she really played a pivotal role in her true diagnosis. She fought for that realization for sure. And then in conclusion, here's a picture of Lucy today. Although Lucy's diagnosis only took 8 months, it has taken years for other families. So it is important to raise awareness for rare forms of celiac. Um, One thing during my interviewing um, my aunt, she said that one pediatrician told her that he thought that even up to 25% of kids in rheumatology clinics actually have CD and are just misdiagnosed. So thanks to her parents' instinct to keep searching, Lucy is now thriving on a strict gluten-free diet. So thank you so much for listening, and bye.